All right, now sticking with this same secondary baseline clip, I want to play with another fundamental aspect of how Bitwig works, which is the modulation system. I want to use some modulators to add some more movement to this instrument. When I brought out the polysynth, I talked about how we could swap the oscillator, the filter, and the amplitude envelope. If you've ever worked with a synthesizer before, you might have been wondering, why is there no LFO? The reason why is because with the modulation system, you can add as many LFOs as you want or any other number of modulators. If you're not familiar with the concept of modulation, it just means that you're changing the value of something. And you can use modulators like an LFO or any number of these other ones to modulate pretty much anything you want within the program. So let's keep it simple. I think this would be interesting if the filter value didn't always stay where it's currently at. Right, do something fun like that. Maybe let's make this a little bit less velocity sensitive. Add a bit more release at the end of the notes and make it sustain a little bit louder. So that could be cool too, to modulate the decay time of the filter envelope and to modulate the filter frequency itself. All right. Now, before I get into anything too fancy, let's look at what's already available to us in the modulator slots. Any device that you add, you're going to notice by the name here, there's a folder icon so we can switch to different presets. There's an on-off button so we can deactivate the device. Underneath that, we have this button here where if the device has an expanded view, we can expand it. In this case, when you expand Polymer, it shows you that this really is a modular synth. Underneath this is something known as the polygrid. Here we can't edit the grid, but we can just see how things are connected. And this might give you some useful inspiration when we start looking at polygrid later in this course. Underneath that button, you have this, which will show you the remote controls. You can think of these like macro knobs, but they can be more than just macro knobs. As you see, there's chooser boxes here too. But underneath that, this icon will always show you the modulator slots. I hover over this in this bottom area where it always shows you some useful info about what you're hovering over. It says show modulators. Each one of these squares has a plus button that lets me open up the pop-up browser, and then it takes me to modulators. Before I load one, we can see there's two of them already here. If I was using a typical MIDI keyboard with a mod wheel, I could use the mod wheel, and this will show me the current value of the mod wheel. And if I want to modulate a parameter, change something with it, I could simply click here. And then anything in the device highlighted in this color, I can then modulate. Let's look at a good example, because I mentioned before I used velocity, and I can hear the volume of the notes changing, but I want to use velocity to modulate something else. There's a modulator called expressions, and this is already loaded into this instrument. If you use a device that doesn't have it, you can just go into the modulator slots, and expressions is right here. This lets me take advantage of the note expressions to modulate other stuff. So velocity, right? Timbre, which is here. Pressure, which is there. And then the release velocity, which is not up here. But the point is, all these note expressions can be used to modulate other stuff. Let's use velocity to modulate either the filter frequency or the filter envelope decay. I'm going to play this. The thing I want to modulate, let's actually, there we go. So this is the modulation source. I'm going to click on velocity, VEL. And the thing I want to modulate, I'm going to click and hold on and drag up or down by the amount I want it to be modulated. I want the velocity to increase the filter value. So while I'm holding on filter, I'll just drag up. Now we can see the filter is being affected by velocity. If I'm done, let me click on this again. And now that's been mapped. Okay. Now when the modulator is selected, if the inspector panel is open, I can see what I've mapped it to, and I can adjust the value over here. I could even change the curve, all right, so to change how the modulation gets applied. Or if I decide I don't actually like that, I could just click here to get rid of it. What happens if we modulate the decay time with velocity? Specifically this. That might be better. All right, click on velocity, filter envelope decay, click and hold and increase. That's kind of cool. And what's nice about this is that since we're modulating this, we're not automating it. We can still change the parameter manually without getting rid of that modulation. All right, very, very cool. While we're on the subject, let's look at a new modulator, and maybe we can use these two in combination. There is a modulator known as curves, which is another MSEG modulator. This can use the same curve types we were looking at before. I'm going to go ahead and load this. And instead of using this as an oscillator, I'm going to use this as a source of modulation. Now, what's cool about this is that these curves, a lot of these can be used more like patterns. All right. So I'm going to change this so that the sync rate for my modulation is going to be exactly 1 bar long. 1 bar. The modulator is in a bipolar mode, which means it's going to go above and below the value of whatever thing I modulate. So if I modulate the filter, it'll go above and below this current value. Okay, let's go ahead and try out modulating the filter with curves. I click here. This is what I want to modulate. Click and hold. I'll drag up. Okay, that's kind of cool, but maybe I want to try a different pattern here. So let's go for, oops, I don't want to draw one in. I want to load one. Okay. Now, when we look at the curves, we can see these are organized in different categories, and there's a handful of these that sound more like sequences. So let's try some of these. All right. Oh, one more thing. I also want to make sure that my curves, modulator, we're cycling through this shape every bar, and I want to make sure that this always starts in sync with my transport. Okay, so with modulators like this is an LFO basically. I want it to be in sync with the transport. Okay, let's try this now. Okay, now you can really hear the pattern. Let's try something a little bit different. That's kind of crazy. That's actually pretty dope. And then here's the amount of the modulation. If I maybe don't want the modulation, I can reduce the amount. Okay, very cool. It gets even better when you realize you can use modulators to modulate other modulators, but I'll just leave you with that for now.